Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Florida Sport Fishing TV Plus. I'm Captain Mike, going to be your instructor here today. We are going to talk about a really cool topic, a really cool fishery, okay? Deep dropping. Deep dropping here, not only in the Florida Keys, but really all around the state of Florida. Now is the time, the spring is upon us. We generally have really nice sea conditions. Seasons are open. Tilefish here in the Atlantic is open. Blue line tilefish, also known as gray tilefish. Snowy grouper is open. Yellowdge grouper is open. And of course, during closed seasons, it doesn't make a lot of sense to target these species because they're going to die, bringing them up from, such deep water. And if you don't vent them properly and release them properly using, descending devices, the fish ultimately are going to die. So we really don't target any of these closed species deep drop targets during closed seasons. However, at any time of the year, it seems like something is open because even when grouper fishing closes down here, you could always go out and go after barrelfish, queen snappers, black belly rosefish. So there's a variety of different deep drop tactics, or I should say deep drop targets. Right now here, middle Florida Keys where I'm at, I'm really getting dialed into the deep. I really am. I've been doing a lot of deep dropping lately. If you've been following our Instagram page at Florida Sport Fishing TV, you'll see some really nice catches of a variety of different species. Tilefish, like I said, various snappers, including a beautiful yellow-edge snapper from yesterday. So it's all fresh on my mind. A lot of little details are bouncing around my head that I wanted to share with you because I want you to be able to go out there and do this right, get tight, have a lot of fun, catch some really, really quality fish. But you've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the effort regardless of where you are. Outside of Hillsborough Inlet, Pompano Beach area, Fort Lauderdale, I deep dropped up there for 2 decades, chasing the golden tilefish, getting those guys dialed in, of course, the gray tiles and the black belly rosefish. Those are really the 3 targets that we had up there. Down here off the Florida Keys, it's a different animal altogether. You've got a wide range of targets, as I mentioned, from the blue lines, the golden tiles, various groupers and snappers, hambone, also known as blackfin snapper here as well, vermilions on the shallower end. And then some exotics like alfonsinos and stuff that you can't even name or recognize. So you just never know what you're going to pull up from the deep. But to do it effectively really requires effort, the right tackle, and I wanted to share with you how I do things, okay? And look, if you ask 100 guys that go out there deep dropping, everybody's going to give you 100 different variations. And that's totally cool. Everybody has their own opinion, based on their own experiences, and that's great. Do whatever it is that's working for you. However, certain things work for me, that have been fine-tuned over the years, and I wanted to share those with you, again, so you can go out and really stay hooked up, because that's what Florida Sport Fishing TV Plus is about. It's about right here, one-on-one, me telling you and shortening the learning curve and sharing with you what's working for me out there so you can do this, like I said, and you can get tight. So first, let's talk about the locations. I'm not going to give you GPS coordinates, but of course the depths vary depending on wherever you are. Gulf of Mexico, phenomenal deep dropping. Southeast Florida, phenomenal deep dropping. Of course, here in the Keys, phenomenal deep dropping. And when we use the word deep drop, we're kind of referring, in my opinion, to, we'll say 450, 500 on the shallow end, on up to potentially 1,500 feet. Over in the Bahamas, we were dropping 1,400 to 1,600 feet for big giant queen snappers and wreckfish, 1,400 to 1,600. Here, we're not dropping anywhere near that, and we're not talking about daytime sword fishing. That's a different fishery altogether. We're primarily fishing 600 to 900 feet. Sometimes out to 1,100, but usually 600 to 900, okay? So again, it's gonna vary where you are and what you're doing. I like to go whenever I can. I don't base it on the moon or currents or, whenever I can get out there deep dropping, I'm gonna go. I don't know what conditions I'm gonna face. Just as an example, over the recent week, 3 different days, 20 miles off the beach, 20 plus miles deep dropping, 3 different conditions altogether. The first day, 0.08 knots of current for most of the day. The second trip, 1.2 knots of current for most of the trip. You know, give or take, it goes up and down. And yesterday's trip, 2.6 knots of current. Almost double, more than double of a previous trip. So you don't know, because you don't know where those eddies from the current from the Florida Straits and the Gulf Stream are going to meander off, or the loop current in the Gulf, and you're going to be faced with a lot of current. So you just don't know that. So you have to prepare accordingly. And that's how, you know, I look at it. My mentality is, look, I'm not putting any weights on my rod. I'm not, you know, really figuring out my drifts until I get out there to the spot that I want to fish. I stop the boat and I just wait. Okay, right there. I'm getting my bait ready. I'm getting my, you know, my boat outfitters, little cutting table ready. I'm working neatly and efficiently. I'm plugging in my rod. My rig is the same. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second, but my lead is going to vary dramatically. However, look, I'm not the kind of deep drop fisherman that's using a big hooker electric or an LP or a crystal fishing reel that's really big and bulky, and you know the hookers are a little bit smaller, but you follow what I'm saying, and fishing it out of the rod holder. I don't like to do that. I like to hold a rod. I literally hold a rod the entire time. So I could really have a one-on-one feel for what's going on the bottom. But in order to do that, my outfit needs to be light, right? Because you don't want to hold something that's 10 pounds, okay? You want to hold something that's relatively light. So the reel itself is Shimano Beastmaster, right there. The Mac Daddy of Shimano Power Assist reels. Okay, it's got a fast gear ratio too if you want to crank manually, and of course the variable speed if you want to bring it up automatically. Obviously all of the features that come with this reel. Look, it's got a digital readout. Don't concern yourself too much with what that number is. You're either on the bottom or you're not. And if you need a little screen to tell you when you're on the bottom, you're not a good deep drop fisherman and you need more practice. This is not, you know, bulky fishing. This is light gear, very, very sensitive, and you've got to feel your way through everything in order to really have an understanding as to what your rigs, what your baits are doing on the bottom. That's how you're going to be a successful deep drop fisherman. Look, anybody can put an outfit down there or an outfit in a rod holder and drop a chicken rig with 5 hooks baited up to the bottom, drift it across the bottom, and eventually something's going to eat something, right? But that's not what we're all about. You know, we're targeting the bigger fish. I'm again looking for those trophies, the big groupers, the big tile fish. And in order to do that consistently, you need to have situational awareness at all times. You need to know where your rig is. Is it on the bottom? Is it sitting on the bottom? Is it scoping off the bottom? Is it dragging across the bottom? You've got to know that. So to really have all of that situational awareness, regardless of the conditions, like I said, I really go as light as I can to be not only as comfortable as possible, but as sensitive as possible. Perhaps the most important part of the equation, the Beastmaster is loaded with a shit ton of line, excuse my language, 40-pound diamond braid, 40 pound, that's it. I've got so much line on here, I don't even know how many yards. I know it's a lot. There's certainly a mile of line on there. And that comes into play. That's important. I'll explain why in a moment. On top of that, I've got a 25 to 30 foot top shot of 100-pound diamond monofilament. It's got some elasticity, it's abrasion resistant, it's tough, it's clear. Okay, so I don't go braid right to the rig. I go braid using an Alberto knot to 25 to 30 feet of 100-pound mono. The end of that mono, and again, we're going to talk about this rig step by step here so you see it all, and then we're going to discuss the benefits of each component. You know, the end of that mono, let's see if we can get this right in front of you right there. Okay. You can see I've got a little glow bead going up just so that swivel never touches the rod tip. I've got like a 200-pound, 300-pound maybe, you know, heavy diamond ball bearing snap swivel that's, you know, holding the weight of the entire rig. I've got a little strobe light on there, multicolor, blue, green, white, they all work. Sometimes you can fish with the light, but you don't have to, okay? Don't think you need the light to get the bite, because you don't. The fish are zoning in on the smell of the bait, okay? They've got that lateral line. They could feel everything. They could see everything. They thrive down there in the pitch black. What do you think? You're the first person that's, feeding them? How do you think they got to be as big as they did? Not because of lights, because they're able to hunt in the dark. That leader right there is 150-pound diamond monofilament, both the trunk line and the branches. There are 3 branches, and you notice how I have them connected. Again, I will leave that right in front of you. I'm actually even going to try and get a little bit closer. There's a swivel sleeve. That's what we call that. Little swivel sleeve with a little crimped on connection. Everything is crimped. Everything is clean. Everything is neat. It's tight. Okay, and it's important that that swivel is on there, because when you're dropping that bait and bringing it up from the deep, it has a tendency to spin. The baits have a tendency to spin on the way down and on the way up, and they'll spin all the way around the line. Some guys will tell you that that makes a little bit, can you hear that? Little bit of noise, okay, those swivel sleeves, or if you use a 3-way swivel, and they like to just tie their rigs directly with dropper loops. Look, I've done that too, and it works. But you know what I found? That the truth is this. Look, the dropper loops might be a little bit more stealthy, a little quieter, but you're going to get tangled a lot more. Your rig's going to twist. The branches are going to twist all over the rig. I promise you it's going to happen. I'm telling you from experience and trial and error. So while the rig may be slightly more effective being stealthy, that's only when it's fishing right. When it's tangled, it's useless. My rig is fishing every time it's on the bottom, okay? It's fishing effectively, all 3 hooks, and nothing is tangled, nothing's twisted. So to me, that's more important than just that tiny little bit of ruckus, okay? Very, very quiet. Plus, think about it. Come on. 900 feet down. Nice, juicy bait. Fresh piece of bonita. Fresh, bright red, juicy, yummy, right? Hanging on that 9.0 VMC circle hook. Snowy grouper comes along. Looks at it. Smells it. About to eat it. Suddenly, he sees this little thing right there. He just sees, feels, hears, whatever that is. There's this big bait right there, a T-bone steak. He's going to give it up. He's going to swim away because that's not stealthy enough. I don't think that that's the case at all, and I'm sorry, but I don't have a problem catching fish. So I like my rig because it fishes really well. Very easy, very consistent. It's a 3-hook rig. I showed you the first hook is way up there by the light, right there. And then there's about a 4-foot, 3 or 4 foot section, and there's hook number 2 rigged exactly the same way. There it is. The branches are exactly the same length, 150 pound. And then as you continue to go down about another 3 foot or so, there's your 3rd and final branch right there. So I fish a 3-hook rig, okay? And then about, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches below that is just again a big swivel with a sinker. Now, of course, I just have this 16, 20 ounce lead on here, whatever it is, for display purposes, but that's going to vary depending on conditions. But what's important is this. Look at that. See how that sinker spins? Okay, well, that sinker is going to spin all the way down and all the way up. And if you don't have that swivel on the bottom of your rig and you just have a loop, okay, and you go through the sinker with a loop, your rig's going to get destroyed in no time at all. And the more time that you're fussing with, rigs that are torn up, the less time that you're fishing. I want to be fishing. I want to be efficient and maximize every minute that I'm down there. You'll notice on my rigs, I don't have any fluff. There's no glow squid, glow tubes, nothing, okay, nothing. And that's intentionally. First of all, the more stuff that you put on your rig, the bulkier it's going to be, the more it's going to catch the current, the more water is going to catch it, the more drag there's going to be, and the more likely it is that your rig is going to scope up and off the bottom, which of course is not what you want. You'll end up just catching jacks, if anything. So in turn, I avoid all of that extra junk, and I like that natural, clean presentation with a fresh bait on there. I don't need glow, schmo, anything else. The bait itself is the bait, okay? And that's what's going to attract the fish. So I try and avoid all of that other stuff, okay? As far as bait, for me, when it comes to deep dropping, there are really two options. Of course, squid. The fresher, the nicer, cleaner looking squid you can get, the better. You can fish them whole, you know, not the giant swordfish squids, even though you could. A big grouper suck that down in a second. But, you know, whatever you can get. Squids this big, you can fish them whole. If all you can get is the big swordfish squid, rip out the head, put that on a hook. It's like an octopus killer bait. And then you have the whole tube, the body part that you can cut, and of course fish that for bait as well. So squid is, of course, number one. It's easy for the fish to suck down and everything eats it, period. Bait number two, fresh bonita. Fresh bonita. I cannot stress this enough, man. They love it. Everything, the tile fish and especially the groupers. The snappers love it as well. The size of the bait that you put on is going to correspond to the fish you're targeting. Obviously, if I'm deep dropping on the shallow end for vermilions and blackfin snapper, I'm not fishing the same size bait than if I'm fishing offshore for snowies and yellowdge grouper. So of course that's going to vary. The hook, as I mentioned, it's a 9.0 VMC inline tournament circle hook. It's the same hook that I use deep dropping no matter if I'm in the Gulf, if I'm in the Bahamas, if I'm right here in the Florida Keys. It's the same hook right there, inline tournament circle hook 9.0. Thin wire, but incredibly strong. So I get to the spot, I realize, you know, with this current, whatever that current may be, I'm trying to fish the least amount of lead that I possibly can. If I can get away with 3 pounds, I don't want to fish 5 pounds. And if I have 50, 60, or 80 pound braid on my reel, I may need that, excuse me, that extra weight. And believe it or not, you may not think there's a significant difference between loading your reel with 40-pound diamond braid and 50-pound diamond braid. You may think that's only a 20% difference. It's a huge difference when you start to calculate that 20% or whatever that increase is over 1,000 feet of line. Okay, it's going to catch substantially more water and you're going to need more lead. Okay, we've done tests side by side, 40-pound outfit, 50-pound outfit. And when you have 20% heavier line, you go from 40 to 50, it requires 25% more lead from 3 to 4 pounds. And combined, to me, that means 50% less fish because everything is just bulkier, heavier. So I really want to go with as light as I possibly can. I'll generally start with 3 pounds. That's my go-to. And from there, I could either increase or decrease based on conditions. But understand that I'm not dragging my rig. This is vital to successful deep dropping. And I don't care what you're deep dropping for, okay? This is how I deep drop, okay? And again, if something's working for you, great, do it. I'll drop to the bottom. I'm in free spool, right? I get all the way to the bottom. Lead hits the bottom. I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to get whatever slack is in the line out. Oftentimes that lead will actually bury in the mud when it drops, so your rod tip will load, okay? And we'll see if we can display this here, okay? Hopefully you can see that there. You know, that sinker will hit, and then that rod tip will just load. Hopefully, again, we'll do it from here. Hopefully you can see it. That rod tip will just load, and then it'll unload. That sinker came out of the mud. It hit the bottom. It's heavy, and comes out of the mud. At that point right there, I now know if I keep my reel locked up, I'm going to start dragging it, right? So I pop open. I'm in free spool. My finger's on the spool. Okay, my thumb's on the spool. The line is in between my fingers. I'm pointing the rod tip right at the line and I'm slowly spooling it out. I'm slowly paying it out. I want the rig to sit. I don't want the rig to drag. I want it to sit right there. I want those 3 hooks with the 3 baits. Even though they're spread 10 feet apart, I don't want you to think, let's again see if we can do that right there. I don't want you to think that that rig's gonna be 10 feet up, okay, straight up like that, 10 feet, and those 2, you know, the bottom bait might be effective, but the 2 baits that are way up there, what are they gonna catch, right? That's not what's happening. My rig is sitting on the bottom, all 3 baits, poop, right there, right in front of the fish's face. So it gives them a little variety, a lot of odor, a very natural appearance. It's not swimming away from them. Remember, a lot of these fish are very dominant. They're protective of their lairs. If it's tilefish that live in a hole or grouper that are patrolling a ledge, you know, big yellow-edge groupers are very solitary, very. And they're not going to swim far away from the protective of their home. So if that rig is drifting away at a high rate of speed, you're going to miss a lot of fish. Okay, so yeah, you might cover ground, but who cares if you're covering ground if you're not getting bites? So I drop that rig and I slowly pay it out and I let it sit. And I'm just paying it out as the boat is drifting away. Remember, this is where having maximum line capacity comes into play, like we talked about before. I don't have to worry about looking down at my reel and going, oh man, I don't have enough line on here. I have plenty of line, I promise. So in turn, I'll feed it out, feed it out, feed it out. I'm feeding it out, and I'm not just putting slack in the water. I'm slowly scoping it out. I'm spooling it out at the same rate that the boat's moving because I don't want to drag it. And that could be 1 mile an hour, it could be half a mile an hour, it could be 2 miles an hour, of course, depending on the conditions. But I'm paying it out. And then every, so often, I'll either lock it up if I'm in free spool, or I can just hold that spool real tight with my thumb, and I'll let any slack and all of that slack come out of the reel, okay? And again, my fingertips are on that incredibly sensitive 40-pound braid, and I'm seeing if I can detect the bite, okay? And oftentimes, you'll feel that, okay, the he ate it. He's on there. He's eating it right there. At that point, I will generally go back into free spool. And I'll give him a little bit more. Again, depends on the actual bite and the intensity of the strike, but I'll give him a little bit more. I don't want to pull it away from him. All I know is he's eating it. I don't know if he's eaten the entire bait yet and he's got it coming out of his butt, or if he's just taking his first initial taste, but I know he's down there eating it. So I'm going to feed it out a couple more seconds, and then I'll come tight again. And again, I'll look for that telltale sign on that rod tip, which, keep in mind, you really don't even need to look at the rod tip because your fingers are on that braid, so you can feel everything. But as all that slack comes out, again, hopefully you could see, as all that slack comes out, you'll, that's it right there. A couple of those little sharp taps. At that point, I'm locking up the reel. My drag is not super tight, okay? It's relatively tight, but it's not rock solid. I'll lock up the reel, and slowly I'll start cranking by hand to get up any slack to get tight on that fish. And once I'm tight on that fish and I know he's on there, then I'll slowly push that lever up, because this is the most crucial part of the fight. He's on the bottom, 600 to 900 feet away. Visualize this. Yeah, we'll use yesterday's Yellowdge Grouper. Nice fish, in the 20s, right? Not a giant, but nice, respectable Yellowdge Grouper. He ate my bait, big squid, 750 feet down. I came tight, and I felt him, because now he's realizing, oh shit, something's really, really wrong. At that point, if I just slam the drag or slam the speed to full speed and slam the drag tight, something's going to give. I'm fishing 40 pound. There's a lot of distance between me and the fish. So I go slow, because again, he's not going to be willing to come up off the bottom. He's not happy. This is the hardest part, is getting him off the bottom. He knows that up there is not natural. I shouldn't be going that way. I live down here, and suddenly something's trying to pull me way up there. I'm going to fight for my life and keep shooting right back here. And if I don't have, personally as an angler, if I don't have my drag set properly, he could easily pull a hook out. A lot of different things could happen. So my drag is not super tight. I could always tighten it more if I need, and slow. And right now, I'm literally just battling that fish, trying to get him up off the bottom. Okay, and even if it's literally one revolution at a time, just slowly closing that gap. What I've learned on the bigger fish, if there's a lot of current, oftentimes I'll immediately get on the wheel, because I'm always drifting here and fishing. I'm not stemming the tide, not stemming the current, but I'll try and close that gap. Sometimes I'll turn the bow toward the line, put one engine in gear, and just slowly try and, you know, close that gap with a bigger fish so there just isn't so much stress on, you know, the entire setup. And you're gonna know right out of the gate, generally, if it's a big fish, you know, over 20 pounds, or if it's something just a few pounds. And that's the thing about deep dropping. While you do everything right, you can't determine what size fish eat your bait, because you're gonna catch 2 and 3 pound fish, and you're gonna catch 32 pound fish, and everything in between. And then again, I'm slowly bringing that fish up. The drag is set to where, yeah, it's turning and he's coming up, but if he shakes his head violently or goes darting back toward the bottom, you know, he can pull drag. He can certainly stop the reel, okay, stop the line from coming on the reel and pull drag and pull some line back out. That's okay with me, okay? He's not going anywhere. But remember, there's a lot of strains on there. He's got a lead, right? Potentially 3, 4, 5, or even more pounds hanging down, pulling that hook down, and you're pulling him up. So you've got weird stresses going on, and he's in the middle somehow, fighting for his life, right? Potentially spinning around the rig also. A lot of different things happening. Boat's now rocking up and down, so you also have that, you know, whatever you want to call that in the line, you know, unexpected movements, again, more strain. So if you just apply way too much drag, inevitably you're going to lose that fish. That right there is pretty much, you know, the cup of tea. Now I'll drift an area. If I get a couple of bites, I'll definitely do a second or a third drift, but rarely will I ever do 3 drifts in the same area. Why? Because if I don't get, you know, any quality bites after 2 consecutive drifts, I doubt that I'm doing a third drift there. I'm moving on to a different spot. If I do get a bite and we're catching some quality fish, within 3 drifts, you very likely have not, I don't want to say wiped out the area, but you've caught what was right there. That's cool. You got what you need. Move on. Keep fishing other spots. Don't beat up a single spot, you know, way too much. You just don't want to do that. It's just not good practice, period. So, you know, we fish 2 rods, also important. Fishing 2 rods, not just one station. We have a station set up in the bow, a station set up in the stern, so we're doubling our efforts. We're also throwing out a spinner with a bait up on top. Of course, you're in prime dolphin territory, so why not have a couple of dolphin baits up on the surface? They don't need to be live baits. Squid, the same squid that you're fishing on your deep drop rig, just float a couple up on top, and 50% of the time one of those is going to go off and you're going to catch some dolphin, you know, while you're deep dropping as well. So that's it. You know, hopefully you're paying attention to the small little details that make a big difference here. Go light. Look at this. So comfortable. Yeah, it's got a bent butt, because if I'm moving to a different spot or I just want to bring my bait up, I can sit that right in the rod holder and just bring the bait up automatically. But I really like to fight that fish under the arm. You know, sometimes we'll fight them the whole way manually. You can do that with these Beastmasters, not like some of the other reels that have a 1-to-1 ratio or some ridiculous thing like that. This actually has some speed to it, and it's like a typical reel. So a lot of fun. Rod is very light, soft tip, very comfortable. You can use a belt if you want, or just go right under the arm, whatever it is you're more comfortable with, okay? But fish it. Fish the rod. Fish the rig. Pay attention to what's going on, okay? The more you put into deep dropping, the more you're going to get out of it. So that's it. I can't stress enough how important it is to rig right so you can stay tight.